Hello everybody, it is my first tips video of Central America. Now there is a lot to say on Central America, I can't fit it all into one video, so this video is just going to be a general tips that applies to all of the countries in Central America, and then I'm going to do specific videos for each country which go way more into detail, so hopefully by the end we'll have everything covered. Now before I start, I just want to say I'm not a travel expert, I don't have a professional qualification in giving travel advice. I've just been backpacking in this part of the world, which you may have seen from my slightly bizarre videos, and all the information that I'm giving is stuff that I've found out for myself. This is all my own opinions, and this is just advice that I would have liked to have received before I left. So, Central America. Hang on, I'm gonna go get my globe. Ooh. So, Central America. Geographically, it is part of the continent of Northern America. You've got North America and Central America and the Caribbean and Canada. I don't know if Greenland's involved. That's North America. Central America is part of North America. It consists of 7 countries, which are Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala and Belize. Officially, the region doesn't include Mexico, however, because a lot of backpackers who travel Central America also go to Mexico, I'm going to include it in this video. So I'm going to highlight for you the backpacker hotspots of Central America, otherwise known as the Gringo Trail. Gringo is a term used by Latin Americans typically to describe Americans, however, generally, anyone who is not Latin American is a gringo. So as you can see, Central America is this delightful diagonal slug shape. You will find most backpackers travelling in a semi-orderly direction from one end to the other. In Panama, hotspots include Panama City, Santa Catalina, Boquete, Bocas del Toro. Costa Rica, we have Puerto Viejo, San Jose, Arenal, Monteverde, Manuel Antonio and Santa Teresa. Nicaragua, San Juan del Sur, Ometepe, Grenada, Leon and the Corn Islands. In Honduras, Utila, Copan, Lago de Yoyoa, I don't know how you say that one, and Roatan. El Salvador, you've got El Tunco. In Guatemala, we've got Antigua, Lecatitlan, Puerto Barrios, Semuc Champey and Flores. In Belize, there is Kikoka. And in Mexico, you've got Bacalar, Tulum, Yucatan, Playa del Carmen, Cancun, Isla Mujeres, Isla Holbox and Mexico City. Obviously, these are not the only places that backpackers visit in Central America, just as much as not every single backpacker goes to every single one of these places. These are just generally the most common backpacker hotspots. You can see here the route that I did. Obviously, you can visit these countries in whatever order you want. The primary language spoken is Latin American Spanish. It is pretty much the same as regular Spanish with just a few differences in the dialect. Now trust me here, especially if you're traveling by yourself or if no one in your group can speak any Spanish, it is well worth learning at least the basics. Although the majority of locals over there, especially in the tourist hotspots, speak well enough English to get you by, it's not guaranteed. Useful conversations or phrases you may want to learn include: Hola, hola, ¿cómo estás? Bien, ¿y tú? Bien. ¿Cómo te llamas? Me llamo Cristian. ¿Y cuántos años tienes? Tengo 21 años. ¿De dónde eres? Soy de Inglaterra. No lo entiendo. ¿Hablas inglés? Un poquito. Tengo hambre. Tengo sed. ¿Tienes agua? Sí. Tengo agua. ¿Cuánto cuesta? Es caro. No tengo dinero suficiente. No, gracias, mi amiga. ¿Qué? ¿Por qué? ¿Dónde? ¿Dónde está el supermercado? ¿Dónde está el banco? No sé. Adiós! It is also incredibly useful to learn your numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I really enjoyed beginning to learn Spanish. Obviously you can pick it up when you're out there, but it does take a bit of time. I strongly recommend Rosetta Stone. I use this before and during my trip, and it teaches you in a way which fully immerses you into the language, which is just amazing. Okay, so now you can smooth talk your way around Central America. Let's see how you actually physically get yourself around Central America. The cheapest and easiest way to do this is by public bus. Depending on where you are in Central America and your particular journey, the type of bus you catch will vary. For example, if it's no longer than an hour, it's probably best to go by the least luxurious but by far the cheapest, the chicken bus. You don't have to book these. It is worth asking your hostel rough departure times, but generally you just turn up at the station and you ask around the locals, ask the bus drivers where they're going, and then decide which bus you need to get on, really. If you're in a bigger town and your journey is going to be several hours, you will most likely get a regular public bus or a company public bus. These are more expensive, but they are definitely comfier and they do tend to look after you a bit more, especially when you're crossing country borders. You can usually just buy a ticket on the day at the bus station, or sometimes if you're staying in a good hostel, you can book through them. I think the only exception here is Guatemala. Guatemala is incredibly mountainous, like ridiculous, as in journeys where you look on the map may only take a couple of hours, it probably takes about 10. Additionally, many of the Guatemalan backpacker hotspots are not exactly the Guatemalan local hotspots, so there's not very many direct buses to where you are probably wanting to go. It makes these journeys stupidly long, and with all the changes, your journey actually amounts to not be that cheap at all. I found it was always best in Guatemala to go by private shuttle. Pretty much all the hostels can arrange these, if not the travel agency that's probably next door. They take you pretty much anywhere a backpacker might want to head because they are designed for backpackers. They do these all over Central America, however they are always just a little bit more pricey, and so that's why I think if the regular buses are fairly straightforward, I'd always opt for that over splashing the cash on a shuttle. This is a big banana tips for you. If you have a smartphone or tablet, be sure to download the Google Maps app. Before you leave your hostel, or while you still have Wi-Fi before you leave for your new destination, look up your new destination on Google Maps and zoom right into it so all the road names load and you know where you're going to be staying, and make a mental note of where that is on the map. When you leave the Wi-Fi spot, you can track where you are with the little blue dot, and you don't need 3G or data roaming or anything for that, you just need signal. This will be so useful when you're on your public bus and you have no idea whether you've even arrived in your destination. I mean, how are you supposed to know what it looks like? Trust me, when I forgot to do this, like my phone had run out of battery, I completely missed my stop and I was about 30 miles onto the next town. It was a palaver. But yes, this means that you can track exactly when you get to your destination and exactly where you are in that town when you get off the bus in relation to your hostel, so you know in which direction to walk. Because here's another thing, you cannot trust the taxi drivers, particularly in Nicaragua. Your hostel could be a 1-minute walk away, but if you go ask one of the taxi drivers, they will tell you that it is the opposite side of town, so you will get in their taxi, they will drive you all the way around town, exactly back to where you are, just so they can have your money. Even if you insist to them that you would like to walk, you would just like help on directions, they will not give them to you. So avoid that situation by knowing the information for yourself and navigating yourself there. If it is too far to walk, then you can show the taxi or tuk-tuk man your map, so they know that you know exactly what you're doing, they ain't messing with no clueless tourist, and you won't get scammed. Hey! Okay, so now I'm going to be talking about budgeting. Costs of things do vary from country to country. Costa Rica is by far the most expensive, and I reckon Guatemala is the cheapest. But as a general, taking every country into consideration, the average price of a decent hostel is about $10 per night. I tended to spend about $5 per meal, including water. I would have just 2 meals a day because I am not a good example of a healthy backpacker, and I'd always eat out, be it street food, a cafe, or a restaurant. Reason 1, I hate hostel kitchens. Granted, some are better than others, but on the whole, most of them are gross and shit. Reason 2, if you want to cook yourself a nice meal, you know, including meat and cheese, it probably is not even cheaper to buy the ingredients at the supermarket than to buy it just ready-made out. You could do it cheaper with buying instant noodles, and if I had particularly splashed out on an activity or something that day, then I would do it, but honestly it's not great. In terms of travel expenses, it really does depend what country you're in, type of bus and journey time, because you know it really does range from $1 to $50. I'm going to make an educated guess here because I'd really like to come up with a realistic daily budget. Average journey from town to town, about 3 hours on a public bus, costing around $15 US. You'd make that journey every few days, so I'm gonna say that the daily budget for travel is $5 US. So now we just have to account for activities. Once again, I'm going to make a massive generalization here because obviously some days you're gonna spend nothing lying on a beach and some days you're gonna really be splashing out, doing zip lining or scuba diving, and sometimes you're gonna have a bit of medium days on a surfboard, or I don't even know. I'm just gonna go with $20 US per day for that. Oh, and if you're wondering, I factor in alcohol as an activity spending. Oh, and that reminds me, you probably will find it useful to learn the phrase una cerveza, por favor. One beer, please. But anyway, back to budgeting. That brings us to $45 US per day. Let me just see if that's accurate against what I actually spent. So, I was there for 9 weeks and I spent just under £1,900. £1,900 in US dollars is 3,000 US dollars. So 3,000 divided by 9 weeks divided by 7 days equals 47. That is pretty damn accurate, isn't it? Success! There is a different currency in every single country. What a palaver! However, nearly everywhere also accepts US dollars. My advice would be to bring a couple of $100 US in cash and then just keep it for an emergency. Emergencies including if you've just arrived in a country and you haven't got any of the local currency out yet and so you pay in US dollars, or sometimes if you don't have enough money in the local currency for perhaps a bigger payment, then you can also pay in US dollars for that. But yeah, I would always get the local currency at an ATM in the country, but please make sure that before you arrive in every single country that you check the exchange rate. I use the XE Currency app on my phone, which initially uses Wi-Fi to get the base rate, but can then be used without requiring a connection. Make sure you get the exchange rate to US dollars and to the currency of the previous country you were just in. There are people at every single border waving wads of cash in your face and forcefully willing you to exchange your currency with them. If you do not know the exchange rate, then politely ignore them as they are going to rip you off big time. However, if they understand that you know your shit, they will normally settle for a normal exchange rate. I mean, it's normally a tad off, but they've got to make a profit, you know? Here's a question. Is it safe to travel Central America? In a word, yes, it is safe to travel Central America. I came out alive, unharmed, with all my possessions still in tow, as do many others. But like any country, you must always exercise a high degree of caution. This doesn't mean that your fun has to be spoiled or you're constantly worried. Hell no. My tips to staying safe on the road are: always lock your valuables in the hostel lockers. If your hostel does not have lockers, then never leave your valuables unattended, ever. And 2, don't go wandering on your own at night, especially after a beer or 7. I know these seem pretty obvious, but you'd be surprised at how many people don't stick to them, and it's when you don't stick to these rules that you're putting yourself at risk. San Pedro Sula in Honduras is the city with the highest murder crime rate in the whole world. I passed through that city. Sounds terrifying, but a lot of backpackers pass through that city and are fine. Note that I say pass through and not stay. You do not want to stay in San Pedro Sula. But what I'm trying to say is if you are a human and you have common sense and you use it, you would be very lucky not to be fine in Central America. Okay, I'm going to predict that this video is already very long, so I'm going to end it here. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If there are any questions you still have regarding Central America, or if there's anything you just like my opinion on, then do feel free to leave a comment. I'm thinking of doing a Q&A video of all the YouTube, Instagram, Twitter questions that I get asked that I haven't actually answered. But yeah, if you have any question, really just let me know on any of my social medias, and if I don't reply to you directly on there, then hopefully you will see me answer it in one of my upcoming videos. My next video is going to be backpacking Panama tips, so similar to this except much more specific towards Panama, so keep a lookout for that one and I will see you then. Bye!